is up, everyone? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 392. Exciting show today. I almost said tonight. Almost caught myself.
It is almost morning.
It is almost, morning or early afternoon here. We are so fortunate to welcome John Kelly back to the show to chat about his recent Barkley experience. We did have Maggie Guterrell on the show a couple weeks back, who was crew for John. Now we get the man and the myth, the legend himself to join us on the show to chat about that experience. But he is still in the UK, so there is a time difference. So we moved today's show a little bit earlier, so it's not middle of the night for John. It still kind of is. So we're gonna keep this to a tight hour show, including our after show, just so John can go to bed because he's been so patient staying up for us. So welcome to episode 392, everyone. The show with John Kelly begins now. Ginger Runner. Yay! What is up, everyone? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 392. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy Tuesdays to spend a little bit of it with us. Today, we have a very special show. Our guest, John Kelly, is coming to us live all the way from the UK. We're going to be chatting about his recent experience at the Barkley Marathons and completing a fun run. John's obviously been a part of the Barkley experience for a number of years. He has a finish. He's one of the few humans on Earth to finish the event. And we're going to be chatting with him about what it took to get that fun run this year, what he had to go through in the UK, training, all the adventures that he's been on up to since he's last been on the show, and how that led up to a proper training cycle or maybe a less than stellar training cycle. We'll find out because John's very forthcoming with a lot of his story on how he gets to do what he does. So I'm excited to welcome him on the show here in just a second. But before we do, of course, we have John waiting in the wings, myself, but then there's also the incredible, wonderful Kim. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing well. Hi, everyone. Kim Tashima Newberry here. As always, if you're new, say hi in the chat room. I'm in there right now. We have lots of fun faces in there, different time zones all over the place, which is super cool.
We love it.
That's one of the fun perks of doing a show not at our traditional hour. We get
100%.
people from different areas of the world, which is super cool. So if you have questions for our wonderful guest John, you can ask them in the chat room.
It's the beauty of live. If you have a question for John, you can ask it in real time. We'll bring it up on screen and we will ask him today. In addition to our wonderful live audience here supporting us by watching the show in real time, we also have an amazing community of people from around the world called the GR Crew. We like to thank them at the top of every episode of Ginger Runner Live because it is because of them that we're able to do this weekly live show, our daily live streams, our reviews, our films, everything. We are so appreciative of this community that supports us. If you would like to join the GR Crew, all you got to do is go to patreon.com/The Ginger Runner. All tiers get access to some really fun perks. Two individuals in particular at that top tier have been longtime supporters of everything that we do. Rick Bjarnason, he is a British Columbian trail runner, ultra runner, and he owns the company cheekymonkeymedia.ca. They're a web design company and a web maintenance company. They did the gingerrunner.com website. Shout out to Rick and his team. And Brian Sands, longtime supporter as well, ultra runner, currently training for a huge 240-mile race through Moab, Utah.
Big deal.
No big deal. So shout out to those two individuals. We appreciate them very, very much. Our guest tonight comes to us from the UK, originally from the US, might be back in the US soon. We'll chat about that tonight too. But I'm so excited to welcome back to the show, John Kelly. Yay!
Yay!
How are you, friend?
Great to be here.
Yeah, man.
Doing well.
Are you at this point recovered? I mean, you're a couple weeks removed from your Barkley experience. How is everything feeling?
Yeah, that's kind of a bit of a silver lining to going out when I did. I was, a bit sore after, but feeling pretty good. Not too long after, mostly recovered about a week later. I wasn't mentally shattered and sleep deprived like I would have been for a full finish. So I'm good and energized and back to full training to get ready for the rest of the year.
That's kind of crazy to think that you're already back to full training. We have obviously had you on the show a number of times. We're huge John Kelly fans. We've seen you race in person, and it's like a life-changing experience to see. Over the last couple of years, you've obviously embarked on some pretty incredible, huge undertakings, plural, especially in the UK, all of your attempts and the different rounds and everything that you're doing there. What drew you back to the Barkley? Because you've been taking on bigger and bigger challenges, it seems like, and the Barkley is one of those things that you have accomplished, but you are still drawn back to. So especially this year, after the last couple of years of pandemic, what drew you back to toe the start line again?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I first tried to go back in 2019, I my mind and my heart weren't really in it. I was focused on other things and didn't yet have the fire to be out there again. That gradually changed, and I planned on doing it again in 2020 before the pandemic, and not being able to do it the last 2 years, I think only made that urge a bit stronger. And going back to it, initially, maybe my motivation was just to not let it end like I did in 2019. Uh, but also, it's still such a unique experience, and
Mm.
it's just such a complete, wild and free type of experience of being out there in the woods, of not having anything marked, not having trails for most of the way or support for most of the way, and it being in my home mountains. So as much as I've loved exploring the UK, and the beautiful places here, there's still that draw back to the home mountains and to get out there for a good adventure in them.
It's wild to think that there is still a draw to this event that has, admittedly torn you to pieces, and we've seen you in the shell of yourself, and we've documented that and seen that, and it's incredible to see that the draw is still there after all of that. And we'll dig into that here in just a second. But Kim, yeah, you've already pulled a bunch of live questions. What do we got?
Yeah, just a quick reminder, if you have questions for John, you can ask them in the chat room. First question up is from Deb Runs Far, and Deb Runs Far asks, John, are there any races in the UK that compare to the Barkley?
So the one that I get asked that the most often is the spine, and to be honest, I've done a lot of solo adventures and record chasing and FKTs and whatnot here, but I haven't done a ton of races, in large part thanks to the pandemic. But I did slip in the spine just before everything got shut down, and the way that I've often described that one is, Barkley holds you closer to the fire, but the spine holds you there for longer.
Jeez.
It's just a yeah, I mean, it's a longer event, different types of elements and things that you have to deal with. But Barkley is really, it's constantly holding you at that edge, constantly with the cutoff times just right behind you.
Yeah.
So it's a different sense of urgency.
I feel like we've had you on the show to chat about Barkley a number of times, and we feel like every time that we chat a bit about it, the experience is different. So you kind of talked earlier about how every time you go, it's unique. How does that happen? Especially when the route, changes maybe slightly every year, gets more difficult, or they add a new hill, or they take a hill out, or whatever that Laz's crazy mind is up to on that given year. Beyond that, like, how is it such a unique experience, and how can you learn from it year to year so you can be drawn to go back and apply those new findings?
There are just so many variables involved, that there's a huge combination of those possible variables of the weather conditions, of the start time, of the actual course, of the loop directions, of who else is out there with you. It's no two have really been the same
Mm.
so far, and so that's also part of what makes it so difficult, and to me so exciting, is because of that unpredictable nature of it. No matter who's out there, you really never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, for you at this point, uh, for those uninitiated, the Barkley Marathon's course is unmarked. It's off trail. For you, does the course even play a role in the challenge so much anymore? Like, is your mind so ingrained with the route that you're able to sort of see everything, or like what changes, I guess, from year to year that makes that still a part of the challenge, or is that even a part of the challenge for you anymore? The course itself.
It's definitely much less of one. To be honest, the first two loops, I didn't pull out my map or my compass at all this
Yeah, I'm
year.
curious about that.
Well, no, so I pulled out my map once just to verify that a new book was at the place that I thought it was. Um, but turning around, going the counterclockwise direction, I think that actually worked a bit against me. That I was a bit overconfident and careless, and made a couple of minor, but minor mistakes add up at Barkley.
Sure.
So it does definitely help a lot to have that knowledge and sort of almost that instinct of where to go. But when it gets to be night or the fog rolls in or your mind goes, uh, that can definitely still be a big part of the challenge.
Yeah. Wow. Again, we are live with John Kelly. Let's get to some live questions too.
Yeah, great question from Visage in the chat room. They asked, having already finished Barkley before, do you think your mind finds it easier to quit as that goal has already been completed before?
Yeah, that's a good question. I something that I wanted to talk about today too.
Yeah, that's definitely a factor, and that was the big factor in 2019. I quit after two loops. I was in the lead. I was doing well. And I just I was cursed with knowing what the later loops would bring, and I realized at that point that I didn't have the motivation or the desire in me at that point.
Hmm.
That was definitely not the case this year. I had every bit of that motivation and that desire, and it's just this really delicate but strange balance I feel that I've been able to find where I do truly have that motivation to finish, but I'm not stressed or anxious about it in any way. I'm still having fun out there. I'm not worried if something goes wrong. If I hadn't have finished, then I would have started my fourth loop this year,
Hmm.
but that would have largely been to get more time on the course, and due to not having the knowledge that really with the time remaining I couldn't finish. So this year it was more of a logical decision. Like I
Hmm.
still wanted to finish, but I knew that mathematically it was pretty much impossible at that point. So I would just be wrecking myself needlessly to continue past that.
I think you've mentioned this before. Other guests that have attempted it have mentioned this before, that you look for those opportunities to spend time on the course to become so familiar with it that you get to a point where you're like John Kelly, where you have that sort of mental recognition and you only need to pull out your map from time to time rather than spending so much time focused on like where I'm going, right? So if you get that chance for an extra loop, you take it, and you enjoy and spend that time on the course. So it's so interesting to know that you've had that opportunity so many times in the past, because you've worked so hard to get loops, 1, 2, 3 loops, and you've had those years where you haven't finished, where you have had time on the course. So it's interesting to hear that you've almost reached a point where like the experience on the course isn't what you need. It's the finish, right? Like you're there to finish, and if it doesn't mathematically make sense, why would you put your body through that extra torture for literally no reason other than just some extra time on the course? It's just interesting to hear that perspective. It's a mature perspective, and one that I think comes from experience, right?
Yeah, and I think that's a great point that I do still very much have that value and motivation for a finish, but I don't have it for four loops or four and a half loops or
Sure.
whatever. That holds no value uh, as far as an accomplishment. But also, I would be lying if I said there wasn't a part of me that regretted not continuing and going back out on that fourth loop this year.
Mm.
But it's one of those things that's just a trade-off. Like I said, I was genuinely enjoying myself, and the regret is mainly just like, hey, I would have got to spend another 12 hours like out there romping around in the woods, like cool stuff. But I like I said, I've got other things. I've got the Wainwrights and Hard Rock both coming up quite quickly this year,
Yeah.
and just in my head, I knew that I would be going back out. I would get to have a bit of fun. I wouldn't be able to finish, and there's a huge chance that I would wreck myself and ruin my chances of having a good outing at those other things. And I definitely wouldn't be sitting here like I did at the beginning, telling you, yeah, I feel great. I'm back to training at full strength.
Right. Right. Yeah, it would be a completely different conversation if maybe you did get out there and get that extra loop and get that experience and the joy that you find running through the muck of the Barkley course, right? Maybe that would be a different conversation of like, oh, I shouldn't have taken that extra loop. Like the time was fun, but now I'm nursing this or taking some time off. So I don't know. Another great reason why we have you on the show today is because we are so excited about what you have coming up this year. But before we even like take too many steps forward, I do kind of want to talk specifically about this year's event and training leading up to it, because you've bitten off some huge challenges in the UK, some very impressive stats, and we've had you on the show to chat about some of those. But the training leading up to this particular Barkley, do you feel like it went solidly and your build was on par with what you've had in the past, or how do you compare yourself to previous John Kellys? How did that all play out leading up to it?
Yeah, I think I was in a great spot for it. It was very different in my early years in Barkley, especially the first one when I got in, and I really had no idea what I was doing, and I panicked and just I literally mapped out every tiny little hill in my flat neighborhood in Maryland, and like calculated the grade and how many
I
repeats I
remember
would
that.
have to do, and I have a spreadsheet for that with all the grades in the Manor Woods neighborhood in Rockville, Maryland. But as I've progressed, my fitness has improved. I'm now coached by David Roach, which, if nothing else at all, is just an enormous stress relief to not have to worry about that stuff anymore, to not plan
Mm,
it myself, to not worry if I did enough. But really, what we work on is maintaining my fitness and my speed and my strength as much as possible, keeping it at as high level as possible throughout the year, and then sharpening it, tuning it, a few weeks or a month out from, maybe 2 months out from whatever event I have. So when people ask me what I'm training for or how my training is going, I don't even really think of it in that term anymore. Like I'm not training for anything. I'm just staying fit. And then I'm going to take that fitness and I'm going to aim it at something. And so I did that in most of the build. I didn't have this overzealous focus on hiking up and down steep hills all day, every day, all week for months leading up to Barkley.
sure.
I had some big days out in the mountains, which I was quite fortunate to be able to combine with some family adventures here. Finally, took a trip to Ireland and ran around a number of places there, and it was perfect timing, great training, and beautiful days out I got to have for that. So the training was very good and effective, and I'd say closely resembles to how I felt in the race. That like it was going well, but I wasn't panicked or stressed about it. It wasn't making an extra burden on my family. So that's great. Like if I can continue doing that, uh, perfect. I see see no reason not to.
I love that concept of staying fit. The goal is to stay fit, and then you sharpen that tool and you aim it at a specific goal. In
And
this, go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, and I think the Roaches are really good with doing
Yeah,
that with their athletes. We're both
coached
coached
by
by
David.
David, and that's kind of something that we've talked about before too. Of like, I just want to stay in shape so I could hop into 50K at some point. And
Yeah, it's almost like a relief of stress of the build up to an event, because you can trust that your base is there. The miles that you need in your body are there. Your body is ready to tackle these things. But I love the idea of going, here's my specific target. Let's say it's Barkley. That'll never be the case for me. Definitely for you.
oh yeah, yeah,
But being able to look at that and go, Barkley is the target now. And so we can take these tools that we have that have been working really hard for us, and we can just sharpen them and aim them. I just love that sort of visual of pinpointing that target and using what you have to achieve it, or like throw everything you have at it in a shorter period of time. versus, looking at like your whole year is leading up to this one specific thing. And if things don't go right, then it's like, oh, like a big sort of failure. Is that a
Yeah,
different perspective for you?
yeah, definitely. And not having kind of all your eggs in one basket for the year
Mm.
is another great piece of that. But again, just having that experience and, like you said, the foundation of fitness and the confidence in that again, going into an event like Barkley, leading up to it, it's not this all consuming thing in my life. It's something where I'm going for my runs and I'm staying fit. I'm trying to combine them with fun trips and make the best of it. And if it doesn't work out, then I mean, that sucks. Like, I'm still driven. Like, I'm a pretty I've been a pretty ridiculously competitive person my whole life, and when I
Mhm.
come up short on something like that, we'll just say it doesn't sit well with me. But it's it's entirely different in that, again, it's not everything is based on that. Like, I'm driven to succeed and meet my goals, but if I don't, like, I still had fun leading up to it. I enjoyed the experience, I enjoyed the process of getting there. And oh, hey, there's this next thing that I'm going to look forward to now. I didn't have it all on the line with this one event.
I'm excited to hear you also talk about like keeping the fun out there on the Barkley course, which I'm sure a lot of people are like, wait, who would have fun out there? But obviously there's very specific people who do quite enjoy it. But I love the idea of keeping things fun even when they are the toughest thing out there, and making sure that you're still enjoying what you're doing. So we'll talk about that here in just a second. But
And also enjoying the training process as well. You mentioned it very, very quickly there, just it not having as big of an impact on your family life
yeah,
because you are a dad, you have children, and I'm sure life is very, very busy for you on that end. So it's really neat to hear you're doing all this training for these massive, hard, challenging events, but yet you're still able to work in, like, we're going to do a family trip
family time.
to Ireland and take family time and still be able to nail these tough races.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
go ahead.
I've been quite fortunate in that my family has grown as my experience in doing these things has grown. So as the family demands have gotten better, I've gotten better myself at not having obstacles to those. If I had started off with the sort of training and the all-consuming Barkley focus and the mindset that I did 7 years ago, and I had 4 kids at that time and a job at a startup, like, no way. There's no way it would work. And
Right.
if you look at my race report on my blog, I drew a little diagram at the top where I
It's
kind of,
awesome. It's so great.
yeah, to chart out my focus over the years. And again, I think that it's in a good spot at the moment.
I do want to, before we have a bunch of live questions, you're being very patient. I just wanted to quickly touch on the family aspect of it. Your kids have obviously grown up since we've known them. And at this point, they're probably like, I want to say like not young adults, but they're probably thinking that they're young adults. Are they aware of any of the stuff that you do? And are they like big fans of dad? Or are they like, Dad, you're crazy? Like, what are you doing? Like, how are they reacting to
So
this?
so our oldest, who, he has spent some time out at Fresno Head during Barkley when he was much younger. He's turning 8 soon, and so he's starting to be able to comprehend it a bit and actually understanding some of what these things entail. The
Mhm.
youngest, the twins are a bit younger, and of course our toddler definitely can't. But the twins, it's still kind of like, oh, 260 miles, cool. Like, no concept of, like, how far that is. But the oldest, so in January, I was out trying to do a winter solo Charlie Ramsey round in Scotland, and got chased off the mountains by weather. And so a couple of days later, we were still there and took my oldest heading up Ben Nevis, not like thinking we'd turn around part way, and he freaking did the whole thing in
That's
January.
awesome.
Like, crushed it. So he's getting there.
Chip off the old block, huh?
That's got to be a cool
Well,
experience.
right now he's a Liverpool football fan, so that's his favorite sport at the moment, which definitely didn't get that from me, but
Are
it's
you
great.
finding yourself
Yeah,
like doing internet deep dives just so you can keep up with his knowledge of football?
I I have no hope. He has a Liverpool book, like a program, and if you ask him about a Liverpool football player or a country's flag or a bird, like any
Wow.
species on Earth, any country, like he's got those three things encyclopedic knowledge. Um, every
All-
Liverpool football player, what country they're from, and what that country's flag is, it all
and their
connects.
favorite birds. I mean, all
Yeah,
things that will clearly help you on the Barkley course. I
Yeah.
believe that's part of it is those specific trivia items.
well, I mean, being able to navigate based on the bird calls that are in each valley, that's one of the real secrets.
Next level. Oh my
Yeah.
God. I know what that's a Fitch. We need to take a 3-degree turn. I don't even know what I'm talking about at this point.
No, you called his kids young adults.
I did.
Also.
I'm like 8 years old. Is that a young adult? I don't know. But he's coherent. I
Well,
think what I was trying to get to is that he is
I
at the stage
I
where he
got
Aware.
understands, aware.
I got carded when I bought Laz his pack of cigarettes for my entry fee to Barkley. So he's not far behind me,
So you're
apparently.
also a young adult.
Yeah, you just
Yes.
got to double digits, right?
Yeah.
Youngest finisher of Barkley at 11. We're very proud of you, John.
Thank you.
Let's get to some live questions here.
Oh, there's just a quick comment in here from Angela. Angela says, "Damn, that's amazing. We took Sam up Ben Nevis at 9 and we only made it halfway." And then she also goes on to say, "But to be fair, it was sideways raining and blowing us adults sideways."
Yeah, that's what I'm used to having on Ben Nevis or really any mountain here, but
Yeah.
it was the most beautiful day I've ever had in the UK mountains. Just gorgeous sunset. The clag lifted right as we were approaching the summit, just clear view. I was a little bit worried that it was going to spoil him, that he was going to think that like every time you hiked up a mountain,
Yeah.
that's what it looked like.
You're just like, please, UK, come through. Please give him an actual proper welcome. Go for it.
Yeah, a question from John in the chat room. So, John, you mentioned spreadsheets earlier, and John's asking, do you factor in nutritional elements above and beyond calories into your spreadsheets for these long events, such as vitamins, minerals, etc.?
I feel like we could do a whole show on
How
just the
deep
nutrition.
dive.
Yeah, how deep dive do you want to get? But
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been something I've had to reset a bit this past year. I've been derailed recently on a number of things by some pretty bad gut issues that are largely unrelated to running, but exacerbated by running. And so part of that, I've really kind of simplified my nutrition plan for races. I'm focusing on calories and electrolytes and hydration. Really, during a race, I'm not worrying about micronutrients or vitamins. I mean amino acids a bit and things that are this long. But no, like healthy, balanced diet is for the rest of the time. While I'm out there, it's about getting down anything that I can that has the calories and the electrolytes.
yeah, we saw a bunch of questions already in the chat just in regards to like calorie counting and everything like that. And I do realize that it's very popular in road running, right? Like you're meticulous with your every X amount of minutes, you must consume X number of calories because it's a formulaic sort of look at how you do nutrition. But we know from your stories in the past on episodes that sometimes it doesn't come down to that. It comes down to how much can you get in at any given time, because you may not be able to get it in for another 5-6 hours. So with this year's Barkley, having Maggie Gutierrez in your corner, obviously professional crew, and you know what you're doing. You've done this 100 times. When you came into the interlupal, what was it that you were going to, as far as like grabbing and being drawn to, And was it staying down? Like, were you running into gut issues at Barkley, and did that concern you?
Uh, Between loops, I think I had some yogurt, some fruit cups, some pizzas, a classic for me. And after that second loop, when I was cold and in the bathhouse, I think there was some ramen noodles and some macaroni and cheese. But while I was out on the loops, I've kind of what I've simplified to and practiced in my long runs the past few months is doing about half tailwind, which gets the calories and the electrolytes, which I think I'd come up short on the electrolytes a lot before, which then makes your stomach upset and prevents the calories from getting in as well. About 25% supernatural, which are these kind of pureed fuel pouches here in the UK that are awesome as far as good calories and doesn't upset your stomach. I kind of call them baby food pouches for adults because there for a while I was using baby food pouches, but these
Hmm.
are more appropriate, more calorie dense, and then the remaining 25% I leave to just kind of whatever I happen to have a craving for at the time. But again, trying to keep it limited so that I don't go with something that might cause an issue for me.
Simple breakdown. I think that's great, and that gives people a bit of an insight into sort of how you treat those inner loopholes. And I posted today's show link on Instagram and used a photo, courtesy of Howie Stern, fantastic photographer, that captured you in that inner loophole bathhouse moment. What we can't see in the photo and what you shared with us before the show was just how cold you were. The photo was of you eating a cup of noodle, non-sponsored, and you can see that sort of glazed look in your eye. Obviously, it's a long day, probably day 2 at this point. What was going on that we can't see in that photo, and how did that play a role in your overall fun run completion?
Yeah. So the my hand is shivering uncontrollably at the time he took that picture. So I mean, he's got a good camera. I managed to freeze that without any blur on my hand. But it's, I mean that was kind of my thinking. Originally Carl and I planned to head back out together on loop 3. I started getting cold near the end of loop 2, and once your core temperature really drops, and then if you stop on top of that, it's really hard to bring it back up. So I mean,
Mhm.
people were tossing jackets on me. I got in the van, sleeping bag, heat, full blast, and I figured I can kind of take care of a number of things at once. I can get a bit of a nap. I can let the rest of the bad weather pass by. I can warm up. I can get some calories in me, all with just a quick break. Unfortunately, the break was a bit longer than I planned because it took me longer than I expected to warm up, and that was an issue. In hindsight, I should have hopped in a hot shower, tried to warm up much more quickly, and gotten back out there with Carl, who he probably could have kept me from losing my pages, or at least noticed sooner, and I probably could have kept him from wandering deliriously into the nearby community lost on his fourth loop. That's the value of being with someone at Barkley is
Mm.
that sort of disaster prevention because all it takes is one like that and you're done.
Yeah, we've heard stories from you in the past, and you and Gary have worked together, and just hearing those stories where that partnership is such a key part of those deeper loops of this race, where that one person can help you from sleeping on the top of a rock for 6 hours that puts you out of contention, or keeps you from wandering down into town and trying to hail a Uber to get back to the yellow gate, and people mistake you for someone that shouldn't be out there in the middle of the night. All really interesting stories, and I'm curious, with your completion of the 3 loops, you managed a fun run this year. Are you content with that? Do you think you'll go back? I have a feeling I kind of know the answer, but I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, it was fun. Why, why,
That's what I love about it. I love
why,
when we love
why,
this.
why would I not? There's not much else going on that time of year in the race schedule anyway. But no, seriously, it is fun, and I do really want to get another finish and join Brett and Jared as the only people crazy enough to go back and do it again. And I also really did. I mean, speaking to that partnership aspect, when this race started, like there wasn't a lot of veteran experience out there near the
Right.
front, and that can be an issue if people are looking to succeed out there. And I I legitimately enjoyed kind of playing tour guide on the first loop. It was some added pressure to not screw up anywhere. Um, but I'm happy to kind of work with people and see if they can get there to reach their goals, whether it's a finish or fun run. Because let's be honest, like my first year I had Bevan Allen abs, and then
Yeah.
Jameel Curry, and then the second year I was solo. But the third year on the finish, like I probably wouldn't have finished if Gary hadn't have been with me. I had a 30-minute time buffer. Like another single mistake and I would have been done for.
Right.
So it's kind of gotten to that point in the race where I feel like that's a bit of nearly a necessary element to be able to deal with the difficulty and some of the variables that it throws at you.
This one part of it that I really love. It's one thing that we witnessed when Jared, helped Gary along when we were sort of documenting Gary's story,
Mhm.
and you and Gary, you helping Gary, and vice versa. And it's really cool to see that there does come a point when a veteran begins to go, I'm helping other people. Like I want, as much as I want a finish, and I came out here to finish, I want to be there for other people that might need that assistance, because there are other people who could potentially finish too. And knowing that you and Carl will run in together for a lot of it is really cool to hear. And I don't know, I'm a big fan of ultra running, have been for a number of years, obviously. But one thing that I'm a bigger fan of is like camaraderie and sportsmanship and being kind and generous and supporting one another.
Shared experiences.
100%. 100%. So it's really cool to hear you say that, John, that's where you want to be with it and be able to share that experience. And do you think we'll see more finishers in the future?
Yeah, I think so. And also, don't get me wrong. If Carl and I both got into the fifth loop and had to split in opposite directions, the race was on.
The race is on.
Because that's where it ends. Um, but yeah, I do think there will be more finishers. I think that Carl can definitely finish. I'm excited about what some of the women did this year.
Yes.
Jasmine coming
Absolutely.
out and
Jasmine.
getting a fun run uh, by herself most of the time with really rough conditions on the second loop. So yeah, and I think the course. I mean, who knows what he'll do in the future? But I think the
True.
course is at a really good spot right now, where it is incredibly difficult, but I think it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a number of live questions that I feel like we wanted to get to. If you want to pull one of those up, Kim, we can get to that. And then we'll start talking a little bit about Hard Rock before we move into the after show.
Yep.
Yeah, a question from Robbie. Robbie says, "Do you think the British trails and weather helped with the Barkley at all?"
Uh, I do think dealing with the conditions on that second night were my experience here has helped with that. I also think that's largely how Jasmine dealt with it so well. It was very Scottish weather, and my mistake on it really was not switching into a dry base layer sooner, because the difficulty with Barkley weather, again, it's not that it's more extreme than anywhere else, it's that it's more volatile than anywhere else.
Mm.
And so I went nearly instantly from I'm hot and I'm sweating and my base layer is soaked from the sweat to, oh, it's pouring rain and I'm cold. So like it's and once your base layer is wet, you're kind of screwed on trying to stay warm. So, but it did help. It helped with my mindset and my preparation and getting through that.
Yeah, I keep forgetting how much of a knife's edge it is. Hearing stories from Barkley is like, if one thing goes slightly wrong, it does turn into a bit of a snowball, and you can right the ship, but it's increasingly more difficult. Stories from you and Gary and Jared and all the guys that have attempted it talk about those. You forget that one layer, or you forget that extra swig of water or coffee
Or
or
you get slightly
food,
too hot and too sweaty,
little
or
too hot and sweaty. And
oh,
because the course and the weather and everything can just turn on you, right?
I mean, it snowed the next
Oh
week.
yeah, How does it feel to
Oh
have
yeah.
avoided the near foot of snow on the course days after this year's
Y-
Barkley?
Yeah, so I mean, it's I 2 days after, I guess I quit. Part my trip was part Barkley and part kind of preparing for our move back to the U.S. And so I headed up to our place in Boone, Western North Carolina, where we'll be living.
Cool.
And yeah, I went out that day to kind of explore the property and the area around it a bit. And I would like it was single digits Fahrenheit, and I was in my full on like all my gear that I brought for Barkley,
Wow.
and still a bit cold. So we avoided that, but as Jared has pointed out in the past, if there's snow on the ground, it makes navigation easier. Follow the footprints. So
Sure. Yeah.
Unless those footprints happen to be down to the road where someone caught an Uber to get back to
yeah,
the start,
yeah, which
um,
can happen.
which can happen. I do want to touch on that, what you just said regarding the move back to the United States and preparation for Hard Rock. We're excited to welcome you back to the U.S. It seems like you've been in the U.K. It feels like you've been in the U.K. forever. I know you've only been there for a handful of years, but are you excited for your return? And are you excited to train for the big mountain ultra that we have here, Hard Rock?
Yeah, definitely. It'll be bittersweet. I've loved my time here. There are a lot of things that I will miss. It's not I'll be back here and there. They can't completely get rid of me and not let me tick off some of the remaining things on my list here.
Damian Hall
But
is just sitting back, just like, no, more records.
yeah, he might be waiting for me to leave. But well, also I'm hoping to welcome him to Frozen Head one of these days.
Yes.
But anyway, yeah, I'm excited to get back and have the kids close to grandparents and be able to visit them like we haven't been able to do during COVID. Um, have my daughter stop saying "mummy," that sort of thing. But yeah, I was just ridiculously surprised and thrilled to get into Hard Rock this year. So that altered my calendar a bit. I'm glad Barkley was early. That's going to let me slip in one more big challenge here in the UK, having another crack at the Wainwrights round before I leave.
Yes.
Uh, and then coming back to the US 1st of June and almost, well, not long after that, we're going to head out to Colorado to stay for about a month ahead of Hard Rock so that hopefully I can acclimate and make the best of this opportunity without the altitude killing me as it has done at times in the past.
That's, one of the big questions I'm going to ask in regards to Hard Rock is you are clearly in a different league as far as athletic performance. You are clearly up there and have so much skill and ability. You are prepared for the unpreparable. You are ready for the unpredictable. When it comes to Hard Rock, the one predictable thing is altitude. You know that it's never going to get easier. I was curious how you're going to attempt to conquer that. Are you going to be spending extended periods of time in Colorado, or are you looking for like a small window? Are you using an altitude tent? Like any secrets that you might have up your sleeve for Hard Rock prep?
No, it'll be about a month solid in
Excellent.
Western Colorado. So staying at about 8,000 feet, uh, getting some runs up there to maybe learn the course a bit. But yeah, that's the main plan. Getting out there as soon as possible and having that month to acclimate. But it is something that I've hiked plenty at altitudes that high and higher, but I've never, Tour de Jean is probably the highest thing that I've actually raced, and
Right.
its passes are about the elevation that Hard Rock's valleys are.
That's crazy to think about. That's crazy to think about. Did you have altitude issues at Tour de Jean?
Yeah, yeah, but both times, and in particular on a couple of the big early passes.
So does something like Hard Rock give you not pause, but like does it make you a bit nervous? I mean, does John Kelly get nervous? But does it give you a bit of like, oh man, this is going to be a tough one?
Yeah, I mean that's of all the variables that I've faced, which is a lot across the things that I've done. That is one that I haven't,
Mm,
and it's also something that it's a fleeting opportunity. You know, Barkley, like I'm a finisher, so I can go back whenever I want if things don't work out for me. Hard Rock is freaking hard to get into,
Yeah.
and so you know it's it's something that I want to make the best of. I want to perform well this time, and it's going to be some really good competition there this year too.
yeah. We secretly talked about you when we were chatting with Maggie Gutierrez, and by secretly I mean live in front of our entire audience. But we are big John Kelly fans. You know this. We probably tell you this every time we have you on the show, but we're also big John Kelly fans at Hard Rock, and we think things can go really well for you. I'm excited to hear that you're going to be spending a month in Colorado just
Yeah.
to like see what's what, get up there to altitude, see the course and the trails. Um, I think you're sort of like, this is just my prediction. I'm not putting any extra pressure on you.
No pressure, no pressure.
But I think, people are going to be looking at the big names in the sport. And a part of me is like, John Kelly needs to be up there and included because you have this innate skill in mountains. And I'm really excited to see what you do. Even if you just end up going out there and having a blast and getting it done and having the experience of a lifetime, like
Did
then
you put all your money on
I,
John?
let's be honest, I put
Is that why
all
you're
of my
applying this
freaking money
pressure?
on John.
It's you probably got some good odds on that bet at this time, so
The
I'll
return
try
better
to
be
get
great.
you a big payout. Yeah, yeah, that'll be a
Uh,
big one.
I'll be following the live tracker, or we'll be there, and I'll be probably texting or calling you the entire time. Like, gotta speed up, slow down, all that kind of stuff. Any last minute live questions for John, and then we'll move into our after show.
Yeah, maybe just one more, just in regards to Hard
Sure.
Rock. Sage asked, in regards to Hard Rock, do you have any specific goals?
Not yet. I kind of get to that level of planning one event at a time. So I'm now getting to that level of planning on Wainwrights, and when I finish that up, I'll start to look more at my planned pace at Hard Rock, and that's what I'll look at is my splits and trying to run those as best as I can, rather than uh, trying to you know burn myself out keeping up with certain other people that will be on the course.
Certain other people, we won't name names.
Names.
And I will just say that that would not be smart for me to do in any case. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to run a smart race here, is that's what I'll need to do, to have any sort of, I'll end up where I end up, but if that will definitely maximize my odds of being up in the standings.
I mean, 100%. If there's anything that Hard Rock has sort of proven year after year after year, it's the people running their own race that do the best. Doing their own thing and
Yeah.
solidly grinding to their own plan. Because man, that race is notorious for late stage blowups, and you see it every year, and it's impressive, and the performances are incredible. But at the same point, it's like, man, that
It's like,
consistency.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and I don't have a lot of what I would say are comparable races that I've done
Sure.
for it, so I'll have to really put some thought into that. I think the one that's most comparable, most people probably haven't heard of, the Wild Oak Trail, the TWAT 100 in Virginia, which is 112 miles, uh, about 32,000 feet of gain, so about the
Wow.
same as Hard Rock, but it's not at altitude.
Right.
And I got that in 23:48, just under 24 hours. So
Wow.
I'll kind of probably use that as a reference and go from there.
Go from there. John, it is also, or it's always a pleasure to have you on the show. I do, of course, want to give you the opportunity to sort of mention anywhere people can go to follow you on social, or anything that you want to plug. So please take it away, John. Where can they find you online?
Yeah, randomforestrunner.com is my blog, and Random Forest Runner is most of my social media handles as well. I had to abbreviate it a bit of a funny way on Twitter due to character limits. Um, But yeah, if you go to my blog, there's links to my social media there. So that's the best way. And coming up this weekend, I've got a bit of an ultra pub crawl that I'm putting together. So I'll connecting 6 pubs here, about a 45-mile loop, and it'll be a great British adventure to finish my time up here. But
That sounds
That
like the
I'll
sounds
have
best.
tracking for
yeah.
that, and yeah, a fundraiser associated with that. So any support for that would be much appreciated.
That sounds
That sounds great.
freaking
I'd make
awesome.
it to the first pub and just hang.
Yeah, it's like, hey, one pub.
It's an option. That's really why the tracker's there, so people can pop in and out as they please.
I love
I
it.
love that. Yeah.
Our guest tonight, John Kelly, the one and only, finishing a fun run at the Barkley this year and preparing for Hardrock coming up this summer, as well as the Wainwrights
Yeah.
and a 45-mile pub crawl run just this weekend. We're excited to have him on the show. We're so appreciative of his time, and we know that it's late. So we are going to move into our after show. Our after show is for Patreon crew, or GR crew, as we like to call them. If you would like to join us, all you got to do is head on over to patreon.com/thegingerrunner. All tiers get access to tonight's after show and all previous after shows and all future after shows as well. So consider joining. It supports the channel, supports us, and it's a really fun community. Cannot tout them enough. They're fantastic.
We may even ask John about British panel shows.
I think that's a perfect
I
conversation.
didn't ask.
Yeah, we have to talk about.
John looks nervous.
Fun conversation.
You might have extended my scope of gone past my scope of British knowledge there.
Well, then we'll just stick to football. So join us in the after show tonight. But of course, before we move into our after show, we do like to recognize members of the community who go above and beyond. We call them our GR crew members of the week. Kim, who is this week's GR crew member?
This week's GR crew member of the week is 2 people. It's a husband and wife duo.
We'll allow it.
I want to give a shout out to Brendan and Melissa in Australia. They ran a race together, separately, but they ran the same race. Made it a family affair. Brendan ran the half marathon and Melissa crushed the 5K. So congratulations,
Excellent.
Melissa and Brendan.
Congratulations, you two, on being our GR crew members of the week. That is going to wrap up tonight's episode 392. Again, we're moving into the after show with John Kelly. We appreciate you spending some time this afternoon with us, and we'll see you tomorrow. We have a new review on the channel today. It dropped this morning. It's probably one of the best trail shoes that I've run in that's under $120. Definitely go check that out. And we'll see you next week for more Ginger Runner Live. Thanks all. Get out there, train hard, race harder, and party the hardest. Bye.
Bye.
Ginger Runner.